Hello, yeah, 13. It's just Miss Wills here. Sorry I can't be there today for your first lesson for this week. But what I have done is I've put together a PowerPoint in this video and some activities for you to be getting on with this week while I won't be in. So I hope you've all enjoyed your summer holidays. And I hope you are all well after the whole pandemic. It seems like a very, very long time since we've seen each other, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all again. As I say, I would like you to work through this video and PowerPoint, please, and I would like you to either write or type your notes down and your ideas, and then either send them to me by email or on Teams would be great, please. So the first thing I'd like you just to consider is we've all sort of been through lockdown for the past 6 months. We've not really been in school, and I'm sure we've all binge watched something during this period of time. What I would like you to consider is I'd like you to take a moment to reflect on any films or TV shows that you have binge watched over lockdown. Which were your favourite, do you think, and why? Particular were they your favourite? Just jot anything down there. That would be absolutely great. I know for myself, I've binge watched things like Supernatural, Glee, and old TV programs I watched when I was younger, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer for the nostalgia. So I would just like you to jot down any that you've been watching. We just want to pause this for one moment. Okay, I would now like you to think of one piece of acting you found extremely powerful and memorable of anything you watched during lockdown. So it's basically a particular scene that kind of really took your breath away, that you thought was really magical, really powerful, and something that's really influenced you throughout lockdown. I want you to write down what made it memorable. I want you to think about the style of acting, perhaps, the positioning, the pitch, expression. I want you to think about movement, anything that made it a really, really stand out performance that you think's noteworthy. So I would like you to write your ideas down, but I will show you my example first. So a memorable performance for me and what I watched was Joaquin Phoenix's performance in the recent adaptation of The Joker. For me, it was a very mesmerizing performance in not just what he was saying, it was his facial expressions, but mainly for me, it was his movement. And it was the scene at the top of the stairs when he's dancing. I just thought the camera angles, the music, I thought the movement, it all created this kind of eerie, insane, obscure feeling that really was very, very much memorable for me. So that would be nice. I'd like you to just take a moment to pause this video and just to jot down your own, please, and why as well, why that's the case. So if you can get that down for me, please, that would be great. Okay, hopefully you took a minute to jot that down. As I say, these notes that you make, and I'd like to make sure you write them down or type them and then send them across to me. Um, so the next thing I want you to think about, so obviously during lockdown, you've probably watched many things on Netflix, TV shows and films. But where there's a big hole in all of our hearts, I think, is theatre. Of course, it's impacted everything COVID and largely the theatre as well. And as you know, even now, theatre is still struggling to reopen and have people back and for us to go and see live performance, really. So what I want you to consider is obviously you are on this course because I assume you have a love of theatre and live performance. And what I would like you to think about, please, and write down is what makes theatre so important. Why do we need to fight for theatre right now? Why is it important that we fight for it and that we get these theatres reopened in a very safe way, of course, but why is it important? What does theatre bring to our lives that perhaps sitting at home and watching a film or a TV series on TV, what does it do differently? Why is it important that we also have live theatre? So I would like you to jot your ideas down, just a little paragraph for me, please, if you just want to pause this video while you do that. Okay, and I would just like you to think about what your most memorable theatrical moment. Think about what was what really moved you when you've been to see a live piece of theatre, when you were in that audience and you were surrounded by that atmosphere. What moment on stage really stands out to you and why? For me, I went to see a production of Songbird when I was at university, and the scene that really, really kind of shone out to me and had a massive emotional impact on me was the scene where soldiers are writing to home, thinking that they will never actually see their loved ones again. And there was something about that scene, soldiers at the front line in the trenches, something about that scene that was just so very, very moving for me. And I'll always remember that particular scene because more than it actually did make me cry as well, and it's very rare that theatre can make me cry, so that's why it was memorable for me. I would just like you to jot down your own, please, and just remind ourselves why we love theatre so much, and to give me a better insight as well into what you love about theatre. So if you could just pause this and write that down for me, please, that would be brilliant. Okay, moving on. So we have here which we have two images up on the screen here. One image is of a hammer. I would like you to write down which of the images do you think best represents the purpose of theatre, the reason we have theatre, of basically what it does, its function. I would like you to write down which image best represents, and then I would also like you to write down why. Why is this image a metaphor for theatre? So again, if you could just pause this video for me for a moment or two and write down your ideas, that would be great. Okay, this is a quote from a practitioner, theatre practitioner, and this particular person said, "Art is not a mirror with which to reflect reality, but a hammer with which to shape it." Now, I want you to have a long, hard think, and I would like you to make a guess, an educated guess, as to who actually said this. I'll give you a moment there. If you said Brecht, you are correct, and hopefully you did, and you were familiar with this idea. So Brecht, of course, says art is not a mirror, but it is a hammer. So of course he believes that theatre needs to educate, and you've studied Brecht last year, so you should be familiar with his ideas and his methods as well. But what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to write this statement down in your notes, and underneath this, I'd like you to say whether you agree with this statement and why, and then think about what is Brecht actually saying. What do you know about his work and what he's done in the past that kind of reflects this view of his as well? I would just like you to jot your ideas down for me now, please, and pause video. Okay, so I set you your task for this week, your independent task. I want to think about how will COVID influence art, or how is COVID even influencing art right now? And I don't just mean in a negative way. Because yes, theatres are closed, and yes, we unfortunately can't go and see live performances on stage. But I do want you to think about what we have do we have any benefits at the minute in art and people expressing themselves? Is that happening a bit more? recently during COVID? Are people becoming more creative and expressing themselves in different ways now? Thinking about perhaps an example being TikTok, has been widely used, whether it's dancing, whether it's, performing via TikTok and getting that out there on social media. It is a form of artistic expression. And, that has very much evolved due to COVID as well. So I would like you just to write down any ideas about how much and how do you think COVID will affect art in the future and theatre? What do you think about what kind of productions are we going to get in theatre in the future that might be influenced by COVID? What might playwrights be even writing now during the pandemic that might reflect the struggles and issues we've gone through that we might perhaps see on stage in the future? Might that change things, perhaps? So I would just like you to put any ideas down now, please, if you can just pause this video. Okay, so this brings me on to your for this week. And this task was really a task to get your head back into, basic into theatre studies, but also this idea of becoming the director, which you have to do for your voice check question in your exam. So what I would like you to do is I would firstly like you to think about if you are the playwright, okay, and director, and you are going to be putting on a play which expresses what's been going influenced by these past 6 months. It can be positive, of course. It could talk about how everyone's come together and the sense of collectivity, or it can mirror the struggles that have been going on that people have suffered during the pandemic as well. It's entirely up to you, but I would like you to basically write down your ideas or also draw your ideas if you want. You can draw the stage out for how you would direct a scene in your play. Only one scene. Don't do the whole play. I just want one scene. I want to know what that scene's going to look like. I want to know what kind of lighting you're going to use, sound, what dialogue there's going to be there, who's going to be on stage, what position how you're going to use space on the stage, all the kind of things you have to think about when you've been thinking about voice check and how you're going to stage that as well. But I want you to think about, just like you do voice check, why are you using this kind of lighting and sound? Why have you made these decisions? What kind of key issues are you highlighting through this as well? So on the next slide, I've got things to include. Okay, so staging, acting, sound, costume, movement, vocals, all these kind of things I want you to include. So whether this is an A3 sheet with you want to draw your stage out, label it, and then write out your decisions. If you just want a bullet point, you want a mind map, you want to do a PowerPoint, anything like that you can do. I will not be collecting a hard copy of this. I would like you to, by next Friday, either email me or send via Teams a picture of your work, or just send me whatever you've typed up or your PowerPoint. Basically via email or Teams would be great. One other thing I would like you to consider as well is next lesson we will be going straight into the live theatre section of your studies. So I want you to consider what you've done. I want you to just look over what you've done over the holidays and over lockdown. I want you to think about your live. Obviously, I think you've went on digital theatre and hopefully have notes on that already. Just to come to the next lesson with all those notes, so we can see so I can see where you're at, and then we can make a start on that. Okay, guys, thank you very much, and I shall see you next lesson.